In a public opinion survey commissioned by KBLA Talk 1580 and conducted by Viteris, the black voters surveyed were highly enthusiastic about the March 2024 primary. The race for Los Angeles District Attorney is being hotly contested. Incumbent DA George Gascon's efforts to implement progressive criminal justice reforms have generated pushback from within his own office, the broader law enforcement community, and some in the general public. He was the subject of at least 2 failed attempts to qualify recalls. The concerns about crime are reflected in the polling results of black voters. Nearly 1 in 4 have been victims of violent crime or have someone close to them who has been a victim. 1 in 5 black voters have personally been victims of property crime in the last 2 years. A majority of respondents feel less safe than they did a year or 2 ago, but they reject the notion that criminal justice reform has gone too far. This year, black voters will be looking for candidates who speak to the complexity of the issues as opposed to a one-size-fits-all approach. Nearly half of black voters have an unfavorable view of DA Gascon, but his challengers are largely unknown. Nearly half of the black voters are also undecided, which means there's a clear opportunity for candidates to connect with black voters. Our poll makes 3 things abundantly clear. Black voters matter. Black voters are closely following this race, and the candidates for DA have a lot of work to do. KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to the mobilization and use of the franchise to empower our audience to identify and pursue their interests in advancing equity, inclusive representation, and multiracial solidarity. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte. We welcome your feedback.
Baby. Okay. Yeah, man. Right. There goes my baby. Ooh, girl, look at you. You don't know how good it feels to call you my girl. There goes my baby.
Don't get me started, Miles. KBLA Talk 1580. Happy Valentine's Day to you. We're going to leave it right there because we're talking district attorneys, and I have said repeatedly, you know that this is arguably the most important thing on the ballot right now. You have the ballot probably in your mailbox. You can vote today if you wanted to, or you could wait till March 5th, which is the very last day. So joining me in studio right now, one of the folks seeking to be the next district attorney for the county of Los Angeles. He served in the U.S. Army as an infantryman, a member of the military police. He went to Canyon High School, College of the Canyons, California State University Northridge, and then the law degree from University of Nebraska. And he has been with the LA County District Attorney's Office. He joined in 2006. Jonathan Hatami, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming in so we can see you. So why do you want the job?
Well, first I want to say happy Valentine's Day to you and
Thank
your
you.
listeners.
Thank you.
And happy Valentine's Day to my wife, Roxanne. I need to make sure I get that out.
Right? Priorities.
Yes. So I've been a deputy district attorney for almost 18 years. I also am raising 2 young kids here in Los Angeles, a 10-year-old boy and 8-year-old girl. And I'm concerned for the safety of my kids. I'm concerned for the safety of you and your listeners. I'm concerned for the safety of our community. Many people in our business community. I'm also concerned for their safety as well. I have also friends with a lot of family members of victims who have lost their children as a result of either gun violence, gang violence, or different types of crimes. And many of them feel left out. They feel that nobody's there to fight for them. And I think a lot of people also feel afraid of certain little things they normally have done in Los Angeles, and now they feel afraid to do those things. And that's why I'm running for DA, to really prioritize public safety and to let people know that I think the DA should be concerned about the safety of people in the community.
I mean, that's part of your job as DA. So you're saying that you feel, even though we know that, at least in the city of LA, we know the crime numbers are down, you feel you personally and your family are in more danger, even though crime numbers are down?
So property crimes are up. They're up in the city and in the county. They just came out with results yesterday. Thefts are up 81% just in the
Right.
city.
I'm talking about violent crimes. The
so-
things that I would think. I mean, I don't want to lose my car. Don't get me wrong. But I'm talking about the things you're talking about, our personal safety. So
let's talk about that. First, smash and grab burglaries. A lot of people are concerned when they go shopping. But let's talk about violent crime. So George Gascon, you have to look at 3 years, not just the last year. So in the last 3 years, we've had 111 homicides in LA City.
right. We used to have that in a year, though.
But under
Easily.
the last 3 years, under Jackie Lacey, we had 798 homicides. And so statistics are also people. They're not just statistics.
Right. No. I mean, I get that, and we can skew them different ways, and I get that. But a lot of them, it's kind of a page in the conservative playbook. We scare you whether crime is up or down. You're scared, so vote for me. And I'm just trying to follow the logic there.
So I don't look at things as conservative or liberal. I look at things as people are affected by crime, and they're impacted by it. And I think they want a DA who's going to stand up and fight for them. I think you can look at statistics and kind of say them one way or the other. But at the end of the day, if people feel that their loved one is not being fought for, no matter if it's one person or 10 people, if people feel that at parole hearings, nobody's up there fighting for them, I think that is an issue. And there's a lot of victims in this community, and I think we can argue behind this way or that way. I also don't believe that I'm trying to scare anybody. Every day I fight for abused, neglected, and murdered children. Most of them are children of color. Most of them come from lower socioeconomic areas.
That's the unit that you work
right.
on. Yeah.
And so I deal with these things on a daily basis. And so for me, those are difficult things to deal with. I think that people are affected by crime, and I think that they want a district attorney to fight for them. It doesn't mean that as a society we can't help in other areas as well. I mean, if you ask me, I totally agree that our education system needs a lot of work. Our foster care system, which I try to work on a daily basis,
Right.
is a mess. I was raised by a single mom, and I got in trouble when I was 16. That's why I joined the Army. So I just don't think the DA can affect those issues. So when people say to me, after you've murdered and raped somebody, it's hard for me to do anything other than protect the public. But if you want to know my heart, I would rather try to help people before they end up in that situation. But I don't know if that's necessarily scaring people. I just deal with that on a daily basis, so it's hard for me to then relate to others who maybe don't see, I guess, the community the way I see it.
Right. Because you are part of the child abuse unit. So that's why, just to be clear, so that's why he's saying that. But you're talking about what's in the portfolio of the district attorney. And you mentioned Gascon, obviously. At this point, he's your boss, but you want his job. And so do a bunch of other people. And a bunch of the deputy DAs have sued, have refused to implement the policies of the sitting DA, and which presumably were the will of the voters. How do you, if you were elected DA and that happened to you, how would you proceed? You can't fire people in your office, that don't go along with what the voters say. So if you're saying, oh, the voters want me, I've been, I'm part of the American Legion, I'm a veteran, and thank you for your service. How does that work? Like, for me as a voter, I'm looking from the outside in and I'm going, okay, your job is to support what the voters want. They voted in DA Gascon, but yet you guys have done everything possible to subvert that. How does that make sense to me?
So I can't
Make
say
it make sense.
I can't say for everyone else, but I can talk about me.
Of course.
I definitely sued George Gascon because I believed his work environment was very hostile. I definitely refused to follow his policies, and it started for me with a little girl named Eternity. It was a 4-year-old little girl. She was an African-American girl who was tortured and murdered by her mom. And I had filed that case way before George Gascon became DA. And when George Gascon became DA, he said to me, you have to remove allegations and strikes on that case. I don't care about the evidence. I don't care about...
I'm pretty sure he didn't say, I don't care about the evidence.
He did.
Okay.
I don't care about talking to the family members. I could show you emails. I don't care about talking to the police officers. I'm just going to order you to do that. Well, for me, the law is created by the people, and we follow the evidence and the law. And so for me, I'm going to fight for that 4-year-old little girl, and I refuse to follow his policies. I had another case of a 10-year-old boy named Anthony Hochman.
But before you go into the next case, if we, the voters, wanted those policies, and you work for us, we pay your check, why would you say, I mean, that case is terrible, but why would you say, well, I'm going to take it upon myself to do what I've always been doing and maintain the status quo, even though the voters have asked for something different?
Because the voters passed the laws. So the laws that I implement as a prosecutor were passed by the people. That's the will of the people.
Right, and now we want reform. I mean, that's what it seems like we want, based on what we're seeing at the ballots, right? And so, yeah, we pass the laws, and then we want change. So if we call for change and you don't implement it, are you really following the will of the people?
So when you say reform, just not charging crimes is not a reform.
Well, let's talk about gang enhancements.
Okay.
Do you feel like they're racist?
Just the enhancements themselves?
Yeah.
No. I don't deal with gang cases. I've dealt with them.
Okay, but as the district attorney of the county of Los Angeles, you'll be in charge of that.
Of course. So just the law itself has written, the laws are not racist. If a gang member who could be proven to be a gang member takes a gun and then kills somebody, and we charge murder and we charge the gang enhancement, I don't believe the gang enhancement is racist. We had a debate recently where a mom stood up to George Gascon and said, my child was murdered, and it was a gang crime. And you removed the gang enhancement, and you removed the gun enhancement.
Right, but gang enhancements, you can say the justice system is not racist too, but we know how it plays out, how that turns out for black folks. And the gang enhancements are disproportionately impacting black people. So whether in some perfect world they would be racist or not is not the question. The question is, as they are currently being utilized, are they racist?
So people themselves are racist, but the laws themselves, that law that is not racist. Maybe how people implement them.
So keep it the way it is and just kind of say, oh, well, one day we won't be racist anymore and this won't be a problem for black folks?
So people created the gang enhancement. That's the will of the people. It was voted on by the people. It's part of the laws that we have. I think you need a good DA who's going to use discretion and make sure that you implement the laws honestly and justly and fairly. I don't think you say that we're never going to charge the gang enhancement. And I don't say that you charge it in every single case. I think you look at each case on a case-by-case basis and make a determination if you're going to charge that or not. And just because you charge something doesn't mean you can't work through the process and look at the mitigation of the defendant and say, hey, I think we can help this person. Maybe we can strike these things, and maybe we can come to a resolution or some type of resolution regarding this case that fits everybody's.
Well, where is the incentive for prosecutors to do that? I mean, if you're a skilled prosecutor, shouldn't you be able to throw the book at that guy or woman, regardless of whether you have an enhancement? You can find, y'all know how to find things people have done to increase the amount of time they're going to do if you feel that's necessary. Like when you have policies that consistently produce racially imbalanced results, I don't think saying maybe we'll just work around it in each individual case is a reliable way to address it. Do you?
I do. So if you're saying blanket policies work, they don't. That you're going to say automatically you're not going to follow the law. I don't believe in that, and I don't agree with that. If you're asking me, do we have a disproportionate amount of people of color and people in lower socioeconomic situations in custody? 100% we do. If you're asking me to solve that problem, should we just not prosecute crime and then abandon all the victims? I'm going to say no.
I don't think anyone is advocating for that.
Oh, but if you don't charge the crimes and
not even abolitionists advocate for that.
But if you don't charge crimes and enhancement based upon the law and the evidence, you are doing that. You're doing a disjustice for the victim. So we're going to try to fix past injustices by now implementing new injustices?
Well, I mean, that's your perception. So what you're telling me is that you feel like getting rid of gang enhancements is an injustice.
So any enhancement that the people have passed, that I give you an example. If a mother lost a child as a result of a gang murder, we shouldn't say we're going to have an injustice against that victim because we had past injustices against others. That's not fair.
Well, you know what? My sister was murdered, not here in New Jersey. And yet, my dad and her mom, my bonus mom, chose we didn't want the death penalty because if we don't believe in the death penalty, we don't want it even when it's our loved one. That's not injustice. That's a desire to have a moral position and, a social political outlook that we think is more helpful in the big picture. And I think that's what voters, not just here in LA, but across the country have intended when they have elected progressives or reformers.
Well, you just said you, and so I think that, you have to respect victims, but that's you. That's why it should be a case-by-case basis. So I think you have to respect victims and their family members, but it doesn't mean that your opinions and ideas are the same as others' opinions and ideas. They could be different as well. I was a victim of child abuse. I was also the victim of a parental kidnapping. I may have different opinions and ideas about what happens to the people who did that to me.
Right, but if the voters say, we want this, and then your boss tells you do this, and then you say, I refuse because I don't believe that, what should be the consequence for you as someone who's not, who works for the people, but is not, carrying out what their purported will is?
So it isn't what I believe. The will of the people are the laws that they've passed, and I'm going to follow the laws that they've passed.
Even if your boss says do this, you feel like you should be able to refuse that with impunity?
So there's no human on this planet who could tell me to do something that's wrong, and just because they're elected, I'm just going to do it. I'm just not that type of person. I have a higher moral belief. And so for me, I've been doing this for 18 years. George Gascon has never prosecuted one case. And so if George Gascon tells me, hey, John, I'm not going to allow you to prosecute child murderers to the fullest extent of the law, I'm going to follow the law and the evidence. And if that means I'm going against the elected DA, so be it. I think sometimes people have to take a stand. And maybe you don't believe in what I believe in, and I'm okay with that. But I'm still my own person. And so,
So you just, okay, you know what? When we come forward, I want to talk about what you want to implement. What, we talked about what you don't want. I want to talk about what you do want. We'll do that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do Black history every single day. In fact, as the only Black talk radio station west of the Mississippi, we are Black history. Our annual Black History Month luncheon is fast approaching, and we want to be sure to give you ample time to get your company, organization, church, or group to join us at this year's celebration on the last day of the month, Thursday, February 29th at noon. Last year, we honored iconic local Black media personalities, including Pat Harvey, Jim Hill, Mark Brown, Beverly White, Sandy Banks, and Pat Prescott, and raised $20,000 in scholarships. This year, we're honoring Black Hollywood creatives who have used their artistic genius as climate justice champions. At this year's luncheon, we will be showcasing and sharing their inspiring work on our big screen. Plus, a scrumptious meal, live music, great company, and lots of fun with your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts. So contact us today at info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. That's info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. We hope to see you Thursday, February 29th as we close out Black History Month. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black.
I started vaping my freshman year of high school, mostly because all my friends had vapes. I wanted to fit in with them and look cool and be a part of everything that they were doing. The hardest part about quitting for me was all my friends still hitting their vapes right next to me. It was really frustrating and confusing when I was trying to quit because in my head I knew I didn't want to do it anymore, but for some reason my brain still wanted it.
No quit story is the same. For free support, text Kick Nicotine to 66819 today.
Some people just know the best places to eat around town. Those are the people who know to choose Allstate. They know exactly where to go to get exactly what you're wanting. They know where to find the spiciest hot pot, the gooeyest brownies, and the tenderest, most flavorful portobello steak. Those people also know that safe drivers save 40% with Allstate.
Saving 40% is based on the national average premium savings for Allstate auto customers with a clean driving record versus those without. Savings vary by state and vary based on how you buy, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
LADWP is proud to partner with KBLA to share with you how to start the new year without bill worries. We're here to help if you're behind on your bill or need help staying current. Sign up anytime online for Level Pay to set predictable monthly payments throughout the year, including for past due amounts. You can also check out the special extended pay arrangements of up to 48 months to help pay down your bill. If you're a senior or income qualified, you may be eligible for Easy Save to receive discounts and also qualify for free and discounted energy and water saving devices. You can get up to $15,000 for past due water and or sewer bills and up to $3,000 for electric bills. But you gotta act fast, funding is limited. You can reduce your past due bills and kick off the year right, because here at LADWP, we're here to help. Visit ladwp.com/cares today and find out more.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
He was named Prosecutor of the Year by the Antelope Valley Bar Association in 2016 and Prosecutor of the Year by the LA County Bar Association in 2021, I believe. Jonathan Hatami wants your vote for District Attorney. And, KBLA Talk 1580, we did a survey. We did a public opinion survey with Eviderus of LA County Black likely voters. And, tracking with what you said, majority said they feel less safe than they felt a year or 2 years ago. But also, maybe possibly contradicting what you said, 52% said police reform, justice reform has not gone far enough. I'm giving you that frame because I feel like, when we talk about people wanting justice for victims, as a sister of a victim, I agree. But what does that look like? What does that look like in a fair, humane, non-racist, and, in accordance with what voters have consistently asked for manner? So with that framing, I ask you, what do you want to implement? We know that you don't agree with George Gascon, our current DA, on anything, pretty much.
I wouldn't say anything.
Okay, well, maybe you can share what you do. But what is it that you want to implement?
So if you asked me, I think one of the things he's done that is good is that he's brought in different groups in different communities and given them a seat at the table. And so some of his committees regarding the African-American community, the LGBTQ plus community,
Victims.
Yeah, they've been, I think the prior administration didn't involve these communities. And the justice system is your system. It's the community, and so it should reflect the community. So getting different groups to come in and advise the DA, I think, is important. I'm 100% supportive of that, and I think it's a good idea. As far as police reform goes, just to let you know, even though my wife's a police officer, and I'm supported by police officers, my mom was ran over in 2010 by an off-duty LAPD police officer who was drunk. My mom was very seriously injured. Our office prosecuted that case. I called that police officer a coward because he fled. He only got 1 year in county jail. I was really upset at that. My mom was in the hospital for about 4 months. I had to move home. And so I've been on the other side. And so I think we need a JSID unit, which is the Justice System Integrity Unit, that is staffed with really good prosecutors who do hold police accountable and responsible if they commit crimes. I think part of it is people feel that these individuals, the police officers who have power, are getting away with things and other people aren't. And it's not fair.
I mean, the evidence bears it out. It's not just a feeling. But it seems like, at least with the LAPD, they're more likely to get prosecuted for doing something drunk off duty or, raping a person or something that as opposed to killing Black and Latino citizens.
So I think that it's important to let the community know that even if you're a police officer, you're going to be held accountable and responsible if you commit crimes just like anybody else. I believe in that 100%. I'm one of the only prosecutors who filed a pitches motion, which means a motion telling the police that they didn't give some evidence. And it was a tough situation for me as a result of doing that. But I'm still going to do the right thing. It doesn't mean I don't believe that police officers try to do the best they can. I do. But if they're hurting somebody in the community, we need to address that. We also need to be empathetic to anybody who gets shot and killed, no matter if it's a justified shooting or not. They're still people, and a family member has lost somebody. And I think we lose that too, that nobody should get killed, no matter if they did something wrong or not. And if that does happen, the DA should be empathetic to that family and at least reach out to that family and community and be receptive to that, and show some sympathy and empathy for that, no matter what side you're on as far as if you think you can prosecute somebody or not. For me, I want to help victims and survivors and surviving family members. I want to give them a seat at the table. I also want to help kids. I'd like to bring foster kids to Hall of Justice and try to get them forever homes. I think partnering with the Board of Supervisors is an important aspect of doing that. I also want to deal with fentanyl. We have a major fentanyl crisis, and a lot of our teenagers are getting killed as a result of that. They're getting tricked. We also have a big street racing problem in Compton and in other areas where people take over different areas, and they end up hurting people in the community, and they end up hurting younger people. We need to deal with that as well. I think those are issues that the DA hasn't addressed or talked about, and so those are some issues that I'd like to address and deal with. I'd also like to have a deputy DA in each community report to their city council once a month, and then them report to me about different issues in the community. Because East LA is a lot different than Lancaster.
Right.
Lancaster's a lot different than San Dimas.
Time flies when you're on the radio. You've said you don't see conservative versus liberal, but you've been endorsed by police unions, and you've been labeled, at least by the press, conservative. The policies that you're outlining here, to me, seem conservative, the positions. How would you describe yourself, and then tell us how to find out more about you?
So I would describe myself as somebody who's going to prosecute violent crime, but also somebody who has a heart and is willing to listen and does care about others. I've been in trouble before, and so I do realize that people make mistakes, and I think we have to find a way to help people who want the help and need the help, and we can rehabilitate them. But we also have to realize that there are some people that are violent, that are bad. And those individuals, I don't want them to hurt anybody else as well. And so I hope people see me as that, somebody in the community who's raising my kids here, who doesn't want to leave. I love Los Angeles. I just want to make it a better place for everybody. And to find out more about me, you can go to www.jonathan, JONATHAN, Hatami, HATAMI.com. I'd love your support, and I'd love your vote, and I want to thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. It's nice meeting you.
Thank you.
It's DA Day. You thought it was Valentine's Day. More straight ahead on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The judge overseeing the New York State civil fraud trial, 32111. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The judge overseeing the New York State civil fraud trial of the Trump Organization, Donald Trump and his 2 adult sons, will issue his verdict on damages this week. NBC News reporting the decision will come from Judge Arthur Engoron Friday. In Kansas, an arrest is made in connection with the theft of a statue of baseball legend African-American Jackie Robinson in Wichita. KAKE reported that police have arrested 45-year-old Ricky Aldrett, who appeared in court yesterday and was charged with felony theft, aggravated criminal damage to property, and making false information. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Why are people saying hew yeah to Jackson Hewitt? When you switch to Jackson Hewitt, they will beat what you paid last year on tax prep, even if you filed online. Proof of prior year payment required when filing. New clients only at participating locations through April 7th. Terms at jacksonhewitt.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers had a carefree game last night against Detroit. They won by 14 at Crypto.com. 25 points and 8 assists for LeBron. Anthony Davis had 20 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 block shots. The Lakers are at Utah tonight. Last game for the Lakers and Clippers before the All-Star break. The Clippers are at Golden State tonight. A special moment for Shaquille O'Neal last night in Orlando. Shaq's number 32 jersey was retired by the Orlando Magic. He's the first Orlando player in the franchise's 35-year history to have his number retired. Shaq joins Wilt Chamberlain and Pete Maravich as the only NBA players to have their number retired by 3 teams. The Lakers retired Shaq's number 34. Miami retired his number 32. Orlando chose Shaq with the number 1 pick in the 1992 draft. He played 4 years with the Magic before signing with the Lakers as a free agent in 1996. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
It's time to represent your community in the 2024 presidential primary election. When you vote, you get to decide what is best for you, your neighborhood, and your family. Use your power. Make a plan to vote today. Visit plan.lavote.gov. That's plan.lavote.gov to get everything you need to vote in the March 5th presidential primary election. Brought to you by the Los Angeles County Registrar.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed? Because no two people sleep the same. Only the Sleep Number smart bed lets you each choose your individual firmness and comfort, your Sleep Number setting. The Climate 360 smart bed is so smart it actively cools or warms up to 13 degrees on either side for your ideal sleep temperature. And now, during our President's Day sale, save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed, plus free home delivery when you add any base. Ends Monday. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
Hey everyone, it's Joe Montana. Spreading the word about pneumococcal pneumonia, a potentially serious bacterial lung disease that can be life-threatening. If you're 65 or older like me, you're at increased risk. So, what's the game plan? A strong defense. Pneumococcal pneumonia can strike at any time in any season, so you shouldn't wait to help protect yourself. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist about vaccination today and learn more at knowpneumonia.com. That's KNOW pneumonia.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
Hey! KBLA Talk 1580, taking a selfie while we get on the air. Hey, just reminding you that the ballots are in now. The election is actually happening right now for your mail-in ballots. If you want to hear any of these conversations with candidates for district attorney or assembly or senate, they are all on our website, KBLA 15. It's just KBLA1580.com. Another person seeking your vote for the job of LA County District Attorney is in the studio. You can find us on YouTube. He's a lifelong Angelino. Grew up and went to school here, met his wife here. Vivian is her name. It's in the bio. Raised 3 children. All that happened in Los Angeles. He is, his dad was an Air Force captain. He says public service is in his DNA, and he is running for district attorney. Welcome, Nathan Hochman.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, great to have you in studio. So again, you're a prosecutor. You want the top job. Why?
So I am a lifelong Angelino, and I've gone up and down this county all throughout the 88 cities that make it up. And I've talked to people, and people are genuinely afraid. They're afraid to go out at night. They're afraid to see their kids out. You know, they're afraid to go to parks. They're afraid to go to subways, the beach. It's a level of fear that we haven't seen in years. In fact, they took a poll, and 2/3 of Angelinos actually feel less safe today than they did 3 years ago. And there's a reason for it. I believe that part of the significant reason for it is the DA's current policies. that the DA actually set out a whole bunch of policies the first day he took office, and he said out loud to criminals that I'm going to move the lines. I'm going to actually move the lines in favor of, for instance, juveniles stealing just under $950, which is why we had a situation over on January 2nd at about 3 in the morning at Reuben's Bakery in Compton, where a 13-year-old backs a Kia, takes down the iron grate of that 48-year-old institution. Over 100 juveniles go in, ransack the place, and know, quite candidly, that they will not be prosecuted.
No, I mean, no one's celebrating, somebody ramming into a bakery and running in, and no one's celebrating smash and grabs. But when I hear prosecutors, especially folks who are conservative, saying that they can make a direct correlation between a crime and a policy, I need to see the evidence for that.
So the evidence is causation. That but for that policy, I don't think you see 100 juveniles run in.
But I don't think you see is not evidence. That's your opinion.
Well, again, the way you can see it is the rise, for instance, in property crimes that have happened every single year that George Gascon's policies have been implemented. They rose 10% in 2021, 24% in 2022, and now 25%.
Right.
Again,
81%. Right. You're giving me statistics, but again, where's the causal connection? I mean, it could be the pandemic, could be George Gascon, it could be people are broke, it could, there's lots of reasons why that happens. So,
correct.
Again, it's just like Proposition 47. The day after it was passed, police, organizations started saying, "Oh, crime is up because of 47." Well, it's not even been implemented yet. That's an opinion. And I just need to see evidence.
Fair enough. But let me make sure that you understand my perspective.
Okay.
Because you only listed half my resume. I've been a prosecutor for 10 years.
I'm reading your bio, so
no.
Maybe they need to work on that. Sorry.
No, actually, it's right there in my bio. I spent 10 years as a prosecutor, but I've spent 20 years as a defense attorney. In fact, I've gone into court I'm the only candidate who has cross-examined police officers successfully. I've gotten cases overturned when the police violated people's constitutional rights. I've overturned wiretaps when they violated constitutional rights, searches, arrests. I've won acquittals at trial as a defense attorney. As a prosecutor, I'm the only prosecutor who actually prosecuted a corrupt sheriff. If you remember back in the 1990s, there was an elite major drug unit in the sheriff's department that went after drug dealers, the highest end. Problem was they were stealing the drugs and the guns from the drug dealers themselves. At the U.S. Attorney's Office, I was part of a group of 16 prosecutors that went after 32 different sheriffs. We convicted them all. In fact, Denzel Washington modeled the movie Training Days after our prosecutions. So I actually have the credibility on both sides of the aisle of holding the police accountable. It's not other candidates talk about an idea of doing this, a plan to do this, an aspiration to do this. I've actually gone into court, prosecuted police officers on one end, and gone ahead and cross-examined on the defense on behalf of people alleged to be committed crimes. He will presumed to be innocent. And very often, as I'm sure you're aware, that presumption is a very hard thing to enforce in the courts. But I spend every day for the last off and on 20 years of my career going after the government and holding them accountable. Now, that doesn't mean that I think every police officer is corrupt. Just the opposite. I think the overwhelming number of police officers are trying to do it right every single day. But when they don't do it right, they know that Nathan Hochman isn't going to talk about assigning someone to do it, that I actually have done it myself. I walk that walk, not just talk the talk.
So speaking about, both sides of the aisle, you've been endorsed by Steve Cooley, and you were a Republican, but now you're a Democrat.
So I was endorsed by Steve Cooley, but I've also been endorsed by Michael Harris. Michael Harris, as you know, is the founder of Death Row Records. Michael Harris, again, is someone who's gotten to know me as not just a prosecutor, but also a defense attorney, and also someone who cares about what happens to prisoners while they're in prison. Michael Harris, as you probably know, is one of the founders of a group called The Last Mile, and you should look it up. It's thelastmile.org. It does fantastic work in the prisons. It's actually teaching prisoners coding skills, how to do a website maintenance. And it helps them get a coding certificate, and most importantly, it helps them get their first job when they get out of prison. See, a lot of the other candidates here, they've never had a client with a conviction get out of prison and see how hard it is to actually get a job, to actually get a bank account, to be quite honest. But what the last mile does is it helps them get that first job. And whereas the recidivism rate, the rate at which people go back to prison after 2 years, is over 50% in this county, which is an absolutely shameful statistic, the last mile's recidivism rate is 0.
Right. So you're talking about, I don't see them on your website, but but you've also been endorsed by Steve Soboroff, former LA police commissioner. And you said you didn't address the issue of, like, you know, because it sounds like your endorsements are both sides of the fence to a degree. I don't know if Harris is a Republican or a Democrat. I don't know him personally, but I know Cooley is a Republican and has been spearheading every recall effort and every effort to get rid of Gascon. So why the switch from Republican to Democrat?
Oh, and let me make that clear. I didn't switch from Republican to Democrat. I re-registered for this election as an independent. And let me tell you why.
Not the independent party, but the whatever declined.
It's actually no party preference.
No party preference, right.
And let me tell you why. If this position of district attorney is called a nonpartisan position, which means when you get to the ballot, you're not going to see anyone's party affiliation next to their name. And the reason is you want the district attorney to make the calls on the balls and the strikes of people's liberty, not based on whether or not you are a Democrat or someone's a Republican or someone's a Green Party, but based on just the facts and
yeah,
the
but
law.
I mean, my what it says R or D after my name doesn't change my perception. It doesn't change my life experience, my lived experience, which colors the way I see justice.
And absolutely. And that's the point. The point is that these labels, these party labels, you could be a Democrat, but what does that actually mean? You could be an independent.
Well, it kind of does mean some things. I mean, specifically, Republicans in LA County have been very, very actively going against the will of the voters in terms of reforming our district attorney's office and our entire justice system.
But again, are you going to vote for just the label, or are you actually going to look to ask me what I stand for? So, for instance,
yeah, that's why I'm asking
absolutely.
you. Why would you switch? Is it a change of heart about those policies, or you just just want to be neutral?
No, what I want to convey to the voters is that I actually believe that we should take the politics out of the decision making. So I'll give you an example of a law that's come down that George Gascon has not enforced, but I would enforce immediately. It's called racial blind charging. It actually got passed last year, and it encouraged every single county to go ahead and engage in a situation where when a police report comes in, a computer program, interestingly, strips out all references to both the defender, the potential perpetrator, the victim, even the police officer, anything dealing with race. It then asks the deputy district attorney to make a decision. Would you bring the case or not bring the case? Then they get to reveal the racial words, for instance, or descriptions that were part of the original report.
Got it.
And if you then make the same decision, then the case proceeds on. If you don't make the same decision...
Of course, the police officer who made that arrest didn't have that colorblind advantage, but
and by the way, you might be right, but the whole point is on the DA's office.
Mm-hmm.
You can help. That's the whole point. You can help correct if there's been a racially improper, a decision based improperly on race. You can actually correct that, and you know where we need to actually really focus on it is there was a report released today by the Commission on Human Relations. LA Commission that basically said that blacks and Latinos are being over-prosecuted in Glendale, South Pasadena, and Pasadena.
Right.
And what's interesting about that...
Okay, I mean...
I'm sorry.
Go ahead and land. I just want to make sure we have time to let you answer the questions you asked me to ask you.
Absolutely. But what I think that's so important for your listeners to hear is that most of the focus on racially improper policing is done in the urban areas. This is one of the first reports dealing with the suburban areas and made some of the similar findings that we've seen on the urban areas.
I mean, you could have pretty much asked people in the community. We would have told you that. But so you started out saying that Gascon on day one rolled out all these policies that you don't agree with. And but those policies, it's really almost like a list. I mean, you can argue with how he did it or whatever, but it's pretty much like a list of what we, the voters, asked for, and that's why we elected him. So you're blaming him, but not the voters.
Oh, no, just the opposite. I think the voters elected George Gascon in a fairly unique situation of timing and circumstances. On May 31st, 2020, we had the George Floyd situation, the George Floyd murder. Then we had riots in the streets. We had the defund police movement.
We call them protests, but okay.
We had the protests. You had the defund the police movement. You then had George Gascon making certain promises to the voters. And the promises were very, as you said, transparent. He said, I will release violent and serious criminals before they serve their full sentence.
That's not quite what he said, but okay.
That's what he did.
That's how you're interpreting. Yeah, but you can't put people in quotes when that's not.
That's actually what he did. And has done consistently over the last 3 years.
I don't agree. I don't know that is factual, but okay.
Let me give you the second one. He
State
said
things as opinion, then that's fine.
Fair enough. And he said out loud that I won't prosecute to the full extent of the law of violent and serious criminals.
I don't think that's what he said, but okay, got your point.
But he made a third promise.
Okay.
The third promise is if I do the first two, things are going to get better, more safe than less safe in our community.
Okay, let's talk about some of the actual concrete policies rather than just, we'll do that when we come forward, rather than just saying, he said I won't prosecute violent crime. We're talking about the death penalty.
Yes.
We're talking about gang enhancements,
Yes.
Which, many feel are racist. And they are certainly having a racially disparate impact. We're talking about whether kids should be charged as adults. This isn't, I'm going to let everybody out. These are specific things that voters ask for, not just in LA County, but a nationwide movement, right?
Right.
And so I want to get your thoughts on those specific policy positions when we come forward. We are talking with Nathan Hochman. And I didn't mean to leave out the bio, but, he will inform you. He's certainly been a prosecutor for many years in many different positions, and right now he wants your vote for district attorney. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Spend an evening with MSNBC political analyst and host of The Readout, Joy Ann Reid at Pomona College on Thursday, February 15th at 7 p.m. Celebrate the release of her new book, Merle and Medgar Evers and the Love Story That Changed America. The event is free and open to the public, but tickets are required. You can even purchase a signed copy of the book. Visit www.pomona.edu/bridges to reserve tickets now.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
I started vaping my freshman year of high school, mostly because all my friends had vapes. I wanted to fit in with them and look cool and be a part of everything that they were doing. The hardest part about quitting for me was all my friends still hitting their vapes right next to me. It was really frustrating and confusing when I was trying to quit because in my head I knew I didn't want to do it anymore, but for some reason my brain still wanted it.
No quit story is the same. For free support, text Kick Nicotine to 66819 today.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
Right now, we're talking with Nathan Hochman. He is a former federal prosecutor, and he is an attorney and general counsel in private practice. You can find him at nathanhochman.com. Threw out a list of policies for you and wanted to get your thoughts.
Certainly. So let's take the gang enhancement or the gun enhancement, or for that matter, all enhancements. What I believe is that we need to reject what I call blanket policies. Blanket policies are policies where you decide before you know anything about the crime, the defendant's history, or the impact on the victim, what the result is going to be. Now, we used to have these blanket policies of what I call mass incarceration, and others have called mass incarceration.
I mean, we still do, right? 3 strikes.
3 strikes is, again, not a blanket policy.
It isn't?
It isn't, actually. Because, again, what a blanket policy is that we predetermine the result. Now we're on the other end of the pendulum swing, which is that George Gascon came to office with blanket policies of what he called decarceration, what I believe is something called the hard middle. And the reason it's hard, it actually requires experience. I'm sure you're aware that George Gascon came to office having never personally prosecuted or defended a criminal case in his entire life. I bring 34 years of prosecutorial experience as well as 20 years of defense experience. And, the combination between prosecutorial and defense experience is unique amongst the candidates. And what the hard middle is that you look to the defendant, the individual case analysis, not based on race, not based on anything other than who actually committed the crime in their background. Look at the crime committed and the impact on the victim to determine who the true threats are to our public safety and go ahead. And those people, unfortunately, have to be behind bars. And the ones who aren't. Because remember, I am a defense attorney. I'm going into court every day telling a judge, well, my client should be given a chance. And I have that perspective that I bring to the to the DA's office, because quite honestly, if you've only been a prosecutor, you think everyone is a nail and you're the hammer, okay? And when you're a defense attorney, you understand that that is just not true. The police can make mistakes and often can and often do, but when they do, it's a defense attorney's job to make sure that those mistakes are brought to light and their clients is vindicated. As a district attorney, I bring that defense perspective, marry it with a prosecutorial experience in order to make sure that every single prosecutor is looking at all the factors all the time to get it right. And if they don't get it right, correct the error.
So, it sounds like from day one, you were philosophically opposed to the agenda or the policies laid out by the Gascon DA.
Yes, many of them.
And so
many of them, as far as they are blanket policies. See, what Gascon did that was very useful, and I know you've asked other candidates this, as to what he's done that's useful, he highlighted the problems in the system. Problems of systemic racism, problem of racial charging based on nothing more than race and not the actual crime defendant and the impact of the victim.
But they'll never admit that it's nothing more than race. Most of the time, it's the coloring of charges or even the arrest of a person who wouldn't be arrested if they weren't black.
Well, you're familiar with the Racial Justice Act, that it came online in 2022 and is now being implemented in LA County. What that allows is defense attorneys, for the first time, to actually bring race into the courtroom and challenge a prosecutorial and an arrest decision based on race.
But as a DA, I think what you've just stated is that you agree that systemic racism and bias is a problem in our justice system. And so as a district attorney for a county, a huge, ginormous county that is the home to many, many black people and Latinos, what do you as a DA do to address that? I mean, policy-wise.
Well, what you do is you make everyone. I mean, they've had implicit bias training before in the DA's office.
And they have it in the police department, and they still kill black people more than anybody else.
Well, again, if your solution is to just give up.
No, that's not my solution.
No,
my solution is robust policies that change that, that are enforced.
And that's the last part. What I've just described to you about the Racial Justice Act, that's state law. What I just described to you about racially blind charging,
but what are you going to do about it if we elect you, DA?
Implement.
How?
Take the racial blind charging. Right now, a small county outside of Sacramento has already implemented it, called Yolo County. LA County should be the leader in implementing racial blind charging. Now, you don't have to technically start it until 2025, but Yolo County started it in 2023. Mr. Gascon, if you so believe in racially blind charging, how have you not implemented this and been one of the leaders of the 58 counties in California? I would be the leader in these type of implementations. Racial Justice Act, you need to be one of the leaders. And I would bring that leadership to this fore. The fact that you have not focused on racially blind charging, which is a state law right now, is a testament to the fact that Gascon has failed to communicate that even
so you want to implement racially blind charging, but keep gang enhancements and other enhancements that are being applied in a racially disparate way that disproportionately impacts black folks.
If put it this way, if a gang enhancement is being applied improperly, and again, the Racial Justice Act allows that information to come out. If it is being applied properly, when I'm the DA, I will implement a system to make sure it is not. I bring a perspective, like I said, of the defense attorney who's been challenging these type of things for 20 years.
Well, improperly and disparately impacting different communities is not the same thing.
It is.
You could be following the letter of the law, and we find that, this is being used on black people way more than other people. So that could still be legal.
But it's not. That's the Racial Justice Act. In fact,
so what are the consequences of that under a Hochman district attorney?
Well, I'd refer you what just is happening right now in court with the Antioch Police Department up in Northern California. Several defense attorneys challenge under the Racial Justice Act prosecutions brought against actually murderers. People who had shot two gangs and that ended up getting in a shootout. People got murdered. But the defense attorneys brought up the whole notion of this racially biased arrest, racially biased prosecution, and racially biased enhancements. And they were able to actually bring this into court for the first time. And the DA's office, the Contra Costa DA's office, led by a woman named Diane Becton, basically opposed it. And the judge actually found in favor of the defense.
Okay, we're tight on time here. I want to make sure you get your main points off where we can find out more about you. And you started off saying that we were less safe. People feel less safe. So what do you propose to make us feel safer?
So what I propose, again, is we go back to what I call the hard middle, where people who commit criminal acts are held accountable. And the true threats to our public safety are put behind bars. But the ones who aren't, your first-time nonviolent offender, who might be at the crossroads of his or her life, is given that chance. They're held accountable. They have to pay a debt to society, but they might get community service. If they stole something from someone, they might have to pay it back. They might get a diversion program if they have a substance abuse disorder or if they have a mental illness. Or if they're a veteran, for instance, or there's other categories that you can actually find a punishment that is not going to prison. So what I would say to your listeners is this: you're looking for a district attorney with experience. I have 34 years experience on both sides of the aisle, prosecutor and defense attorney. I both have been a co-founder of the LA Sheriff's Foundation and the only candidate who's actually prosecuted dirty cops. You want someone who's had leadership experience. I've led a division of the U.S. Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., and 2 law firms' government investigations practice. I've been the president of the L.A. City Ethics Commission, holding city officials accountable. Okay. And last but not least, you want someone who's independent. You don't want someone who's going to make the calls of the balls and the strikes based on what party affiliation someone has.
Got it. Okay, well, we have to leave it there. Nathan Hochman, NathanHochman.com. It's Hochman, NathanHochman.com. Thanks so much for coming in. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you very much.
And we will continue our conversation. In fact, call me, 800-920-1580. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The judge overseeing the New York State civil fraud trial in 32111. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The judge overseeing the New York State civil fraud trial of